Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 3 of Quitting YouTube. I am Brett Ball. I used to be a YouTuber until I quit, which is something that we talk about episode by episode with some of my old friends from the platform. Today, I'm really excited to talk to my friend Justine about friendships and relationships from the platform. Justine, thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me, friend.
Of course, yeah. We were talking earlier, weren't we, about how it's just taken the longest time and ridiculous reasons to be able to catch up with people that we knew and used to speak to, I guess, somewhat daily from the platform. And it's just strange how you can go from being like a daily part of someone's life to not talking for, was it what, like 3, 4, 5 years since we last properly caught up?
I think so, yeah, probably longer since we had a video chat.
Yeah, honestly, it's been so long. So I guess a good place to start, Justine, is if you introduce yourself and then talk about like what your position on the platform of YouTube was, like where you found yourself between sort of viewer, creator, community member.
Sure. I'm Justine. And I guess between 2009 and mid 2010, I sort of just found myself being friends with people who were content creators and people who weren't content creators, because the community was so small that if you had 1,000 subscribers, lots of people knew you, but you were still friends with people. So I sort of found people through Blog TV and just made friends with their friends, and here I am.
Sure, yeah, it like exponentially grows then, right? Once you make your first couple of good friends, then you find their communities and so on.
Yeah, exactly. You go from knowing one person to knowing all 7 people who are in their Blog TV in my experience.
Yeah.
All of those people's friends, and then you meet other people who were somehow in that same one live stream. It was so much easier then.
Yeah, I completely agree. We've drawn, well, personally, the two of us when we've talked, but also like in the previous episodes of this, we've drawn parallels between that community feel and what's going on Twitch. And I sort of feel a bit similarly about Twitch now. Like I'll jump into a room with like 7 people and there'll be a super welcoming community, which YouTube just doesn't really offer in my experience anymore, but did back then. And I feel like that's, for both of us, we were probably better known for our community positions than our content creation. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I mean, I dabbled in it. I made like maybe 5 YouTube videos, and it was just silly things that I was doing. Like one of our mutual friends tagged me in doing the ice cube challenge, and that was a mistake. Don't ever do that. That was one of the only things I did, and I didn't ever actively pursue it because I was just happy to see my friends and talk to my friends and watch what my friends were doing. But with Twitch, I feel like it's the same thing, because I don't think Twitch is necessarily a smaller community, but I think it gives you more opportunity for more intimate conversation, because you're live and you're talking to them live, and there's not going to be a million people who maybe subscribe to this person on YouTube. But also a lot of it could be nostalgia, because most of the people that I'm watching are people that I've known for 10 years.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the same as me. Like people that I used to know from YouTube that I lost contact with, primarily I have reconnected with them because they have moved to the Twitch platform, and that's a platform I'm sort of migrating to at the moment. So I totally get that. Interestingly, so super early, like we've started talking about how like friendships grow and how these people were your friends. And I just thought it'd be a really cool dynamic for us to talk about. Back in like 2008, 2009, when we got involved with these communities, having internet friends wasn't really a thing. Just like, do you find that your YouTube friends differed from your like real life friends back then at all?
It went from me going out and seeing people to seeing people and having more intimate conversations without leaving my house. And I think it taught me about having friends of convenience rather than friends that you actually want to be friends with. Because if somebody's like, for example, the two of us, I wanted to talk to you because I liked being your friend. So if that meant you staying up till 1 a.m. so you could talk to me, that it was just because we were friends.
Yeah, which happens so many times.
Yeah, but it's like if I dropped a bunch of people that I knew in high school because I realized, oh, we were just friends because we sat next to each other.
Yeah.
So I think it did teach me a lot about friendship. Also, those same people were like, you don't know these people. I mean, even my parents were like, don't turn a webcam on. You don't know them. And I'm like, but I've seen them every day and they haven't seen me. So they think I'm the weirdo.
Literally, like I had similar conversations when people were like, well, how do you know it is who they say they are? And it's like, well, we video chat, and that's pretty hard to fake when you're having an actual conversation. Like, and then it's, I don't know, like I wrote a whole essay when I was about 15 in like our media class about online relationships and how they were different to how they were portrayed in the mainstream, because they were like, I vividly remember there was a storyline in Coronation Street about Sarah Platt, who was a character in it, being basically groomed online. And there was this whole narrative, and don't get me wrong, that was an obvious danger, but to people like my parents, that was their only exposure to things like meeting people online. And so then when I was like, I have friends on the internet, I would like to go and meet them in real life, or I will not see my real life friends to stay on the internet and talk to them. My parents just didn't really get that, and not a lot of my real life friends did.
I think my example is different because my mom had friends that she made through the internet.
So really?
I think she kind of understood, but also at the same time, she was an adult and I was not an adult.
Yeah.
So I think maybe when I started talking to people, I was about to turn 18, so I was kind of an adult. But it was still like taboo because that was 2008, 2009, and people like, if you didn't have an iPod Touch, you couldn't video chat with people. I remember it came out and there was a camera, and I was like, I want it so that I can talk to my friends.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and then I have my best friend in high school. We're still friends to this day. And I remember she thought it was so, not in a bad way. She was just like, but do you know them? And so I think it's way more mainstream now to be friends with people on the internet than it used to be.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. It's like, I don't know. I find it hard now because I grew up with it, right? So people who know me know that I had this online thing that I did. And then so when I talk about like my friends from YouTube, that's just not weird. But I wonder whether it would be weirder for people who hadn't done that from being a teenager through to adulthood. Do you know what I mean? And just historically had these legacy friends from the internet. I don't know. Anyway, we've digressed, as I'm sure we will many times here. Yeah. But always nice going down these tangents and like swapping stories and stuff. So you had these internet friends, you said from like 2008, 2009, 2010 onwards. How big of a part of your life would you say they were like back then?
So I made the first group of friends that I had on the internet is the one that we shared. So I met a couple of people, and then to be honest with you, I don't remember exactly how you and I met, but it was the same group of people. I have no idea. So we had the same group of friends, and a lot of them were LA people. And luckily, I was 200 miles from LA at that time. And so when my parents had gotten used to it and I had a car, I just went. And then, long story short, I ended up moving there. And then I met people at VidCon 2011 who said I could come stay with them in England. So I came to stay here, and then I met more people that way. And then through those friends, I met other friends. And then through those friends, I met the person I'm married to now. So it's a very substantial.
Sure. Yeah. It's, do you think like, I don't know. I don't know how much, do you believe, like, I don't know if you believe in like fate or like spiritual drawings or anything. Do you think you would have ended up here, you know, married to the person you're married to if you had taken a different path? Or do you largely owe it, do you think, to those decisions you made when you were, a teenager?
It's hard to say because that's just what happened.
Yeah, such a big question as well. I'm so sorry to spring that on you.
No, I think I don't know what kind of person I would be. And that's putting a lot of pressure on literally everybody that we know. But there are so many, because it's people say that 13 to 18 are formative years, but still your late teens, early 20s are very formative for you as an adult. And that's what all of my time doing this. And I was stubborn and like, I don't think my parents or my grandparents were like, oh, she's got a car. She just went like the next day. I'm coming to see you. But yeah, I think it's part of why I am the way I am, because I went through so many good and bad experiences based on, I guess it's the same as with any group of friends. Like there are falling outs and there are really happy moments and everything. Mine just happened to be people that I knew because of the internet and YouTube.
Yeah, I think we're both pretty aligned on that as well. Like what you said about how that group of friends shaped you into who you are now, not just where you've ended up. Like I remember being this like timid kid all the way growing up, like from single digits into being like a preteen and a teenager and stuff. And I remember just like having confidence issues and being really shy and stuff. And like weirdly, like YouTube and these friends that I made gave me, it's not even that YouTube gave me a platform to like express myself and talk about my opinion. It was that there were people on the other side of it that gave a shit about when I was giving my opinion and talking, and people actually was like, well, they were saying that they cared and wanted to listen and stuff. And that was like, that validation was brand new to me. We've got some solid agreement here from Matt, which is really nice to see. I appreciate that, Matt.
He's great.
Exactly. Like just being super timid, and then these people and that reassurance, like growing my confidence and turning me into the person I am today, as well as like we've talked about the area of the country I live in typically being a regressive conservative area, and meeting people from places like LA, which is very liberal and progressive, and just people from all over the world and sort of opening your horizons. Like for me, it totally shaped my worldview. And I feel like, you know, when people say they travel and they find themselves, I feel like I feel like I was able to travel without or find myself without traveling then, because I just met people from all over the world in these circumstances. And that sounds really fucking pretentious, and I'm totally aware of that. But like I hold those experiences really dear to shaping me as I am. And you're a part of that, Justine. So thank you very much. I really appreciate that. It was worth staying up to 4 a.m. all those times to have those conversations. I have this problem where I sound sarcastic even when I'm not being, but that was genuinely sincere.
I'm going to stop you there for a second. You were my first English friend. You were the first person who like actually understood my sense of humor in my adult life. It was me and my dad, and we would think each other was funny. And then you thought I was funny, and I was like, wow, no one I've ever known has thought I was funny. I'm just thinking of something you specific. It opened up this whole world of I was like, oh, other people are funny like me and my dad.
That's it though. You're totally right. Like going back to your point before, like your high school friends are friends of convenience. And don't get me wrong, you can find some gems, like some absolute diamonds in the rough. Like I have a few friends from high school I'm still in touch with, and I love them dearly. But it's totally geographical, right? Like you're friends with them because you're around them, not because you have like stuff connecting you. Whereas, you know, meeting people online and having a similar sense of humor or you know, worldviews that interest you or whatever, or even if it's just accents that excite you, so you get them to talk about whatever, which was a huge part of it for me.
I'm aware.
Speaking of which, this was us in 2011 at the first VidCon. A terrible picture of us, and we look so freaking young.
It's the only picture of us that exists, you know.
You're kidding?
Nope.
There's not another picture of us at all anywhere. That we're gonna have to change that when coronavirus goes away. So I suppose we've talked about VidCon in passing a couple of times. Like for me, that's like the crescendo. Like that is the peak of all these things coming together that I held dear within that community. What that was VidCon 2011 your first VidCon as well?
Yeah, because that was the second annual one, right?
Yeah,
I watched
exactly.
The stream of the first one, and then I was like, I need to go to the second one.
That's exactly what happened with me. Like I spent a year just like, how the hell am I going to get to the next one? Like after watching the live stream. So how was it for you? Your first experience there? Like, was it as significant? Have I sort of made it a bigger deal than it was?
I don't think so. I can't remember timelines, but I think I had gone to LA already. And so I had met a couple of people that we knew that lived there, but I didn't meet you or like a handful of other people who didn't live in LA until I went to pick them up from the airport.
Sure.
And so it was this big deal. And like, the person who was my absolute best friend at the time was somebody I had never met in person before. And so it was this huge deal, and we were going to have a hotel room together. And it was probably way more exciting than it sounds.
No, not at all. Especially at that age, right? Like going to something like that with all these people, particularly your best friend who you have never seen before, let alone not spent much time with, like that's such a big deal. At least I get how big of a deal it was to you.
I think maybe people who are 17, 18 understand it now. Because if you even look, if you're like meeting my best friend in real life for the first time, there's thousands of videos now. But it's
really?
like, there's so many. But I think even people our age who weren't part of it are like, that's weird still, because they aren't part of it. They don't get it. But yeah, I think it was just a really big part of it. I think I would have been turning 20 just after, it was a big deal. I was still like a teenager. I had a car. I got to go be by myself.
Yeah.
The first like vacation I took by myself. So
really, yeah. Because I had just finished high school, like honestly days before I went to the first VidCon, or our first VidCon, not the first one. And like, I was the same. These people I'd spoken to for literally like 5 years. No, that's too long. Like 3 years maybe, I'd been getting close to these people and had never met them. And, 4 a.m. Skypes falling asleep isn't the same as being together in person and being on a vacation. It was my first holiday without my parents. Like the whole thing was just this crescendo, like I said, this big climax of how much I loved the community and everything it stood for. And I feel like that was a big thing for a lot of people. And then I guess that wasn't sustained. Otherwise, we'd still be tied into the community. How do you feel like it started to grow away from that?
I think we've talked about this before. I think there was a big shift in going to VidCon to see your friends and then going to VidCon because you wanted to see your favorite creator, which, yes, I did get really excited when George Watsky was going to VidCon 2011, and that was part of the biggest deal of why I wanted to go. But he was just walking around. He was just like, I mean, he is a normal person. They're all normal people. But it wasn't like, and I've given you this example before, VidCon 2013 or 2014, when I was trying to get to my friend, and then Joey Graceffa, no hard feelings, but because he was panicked. He was trying to get away from like 500 16-year-olds because it wasn't safe. Like they were going to hurt him, but it was just so many people. And then I got lost from somebody for 30 minutes, and it went from, oh, I can see my favorite creator just hanging out, to I can't get to my friend because there's so many people.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And I feel like even just going from 2011 to 2012, which were the only tour that I went to, there was a jump from hanging out with people in the lobby to hang out in the lobby. Like, we're all here for the same reasons. We have things in common. You'd see your friends and they'd be talking to other people, and you'd meet them, and it would just grow. It was just this mutual interest get together. And then 2012 felt like, even when you were hanging out with people in the lobby, it was like, oh, I'm here to find out who's got, who can get us into the maker party. Do you know all the different multi-channel networks had these like networking parties, and they were like, oh, this person can get us in, but they can't get you in. But if you speak to, and it was just like not at all the same as the vibe of 2011. And I didn't go to 2013, but I heard from a lot of people who I had the best time at 2012 with in our tight-knit group, that it was the beginning of the end, with a sort of a death of the community and a rise of the commercialism of it. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's still value for those younger people who want to meet their favorite creators or have a picture taken. And maybe they will then, while they're in line for a picture or something, meet a community that they hold as dear as we do with ours. But it's just not really what I signed up for personally. And I'm assuming you're the same.
I think for people who I think 2014 is when the getting lost happened, because I didn't get a ticket that year. I just went to see people and then I couldn't. But I think the people who go now are going for a different reason. There's nothing wrong with it. My friends aren't there anymore, so I don't want to go. We're not bad mouthing VidCon at all, because it's really important to us, obviously.
Yeah.
It's very different than what we wanted and what we enjoyed about it. And that's not bad. Things change. Yeah.
That's it. And like, some of my favorite times weren't even in VidCon, but they were the surrounding times, right? VidCon was the reason all your friends came to town, and then you'd go to Disney, or you'd hang out in the days that followed. And those were some of the most precious moments, as far as I remember as well. But without VidCon, they wouldn't have been in town, regardless of the capacity that VidCon was held in. So I guess we'll backstep then from when things went a bit downhill. What is there a particular like standout moment you can think of where like you were involved in the community and it was your favorite time or your favorite incident or event or whatever?
I don't think that it was anything necessarily related to the platform. I think it was probably just there was a point when a bunch of us were in a hotel room at VidCon, and none of us had ever been together like that before.
Yeah.
And it was, to be honest, I don't remember who was in the room. I was just so happy that everybody was in the same room.
Yeah. And I guess there were multiple evenings in different hotel rooms with different groups of people, but you still had that same feeling.
Yeah, and it was like, oh, I still get like that. Like when people are around and I haven't seen them in a long time, I'm just like, oh, we're in the same place.
We've got, sorry, go on.
No, it was just everybody being together because that's what we all wanted for so long. And it's like all of us had to make some sort of sacrifice to do it because you had to save up money or you had to do this, that, whatever. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm just going to go. It was like, I got a job so that I could pay car insurance on a car that I was given for my birthday. Like,
yeah.
It's like, I wouldn't have got that job if I didn't want to go.
No, exactly. For me, I potentially sacrificed my safety. I remember the first VidCon. I'd bought the ticket months in advance and used that as motivation to save up for the plane ticket. And I never saved enough. So I went on all these VidCon groups on Facebook and stuff and was like, I'm selling my ticket. If anyone wants to buy it. And this guy was like, I will buy your ticket off you for like $400. And I was like, it cost me like $80. Like, why are you overpaying for it? Looking at your face, I feel like I haven't told you this story before.
It's vaguely familiar.
So this guy was like, I'll buy it from you for like $400. And so I was like, add me on Skype and we'll talk about it. And I was like, why do you want it so badly? He was like, oh, I work for this company and I need someone there to like talk to creators about promoting my company. And I was like, oh, right. And he was like, yeah, I want to buy your ticket and give it to a member of staff. And I was like, mate. And I was like, fuck it, I'm going to shoot my shot here because I'm 18. I've just finished school and this is what I want more than anything. So I was like, skip the middleman. Instead of sending a member of staff, I know the community, I know the platform better than anyone. Send me on behalf of your company and I'll talk to everyone about it. And he went on board with it. Like he disappeared for an hour to think about it or talk to his company or whoever it was. And then he came back. He was like, okay, I've booked you a ticket to London Heathrow from where you live on the train. I've booked your plane tickets like both ways. He was like, go ahead. And then these are the deliverables for you. Like, this is what I want you to do. And we came up to some agreement. And I remember trying to convince my dad at 18, having never been on holiday without him, never really left the country apart from when I was like 8 years old and went to Disneyland with him. And I was like, you have to let me go. I was like, worst case scenario, I'm getting on this plane or I go to get on the plane and the ticket's not real. And then I just get another coach home, but I'm not going to put myself in jeopardy.
Worst case scenario, honey. The worst case scenario is you get napped.
Yeah. But I was not going to say that to my father, trying to convince him to let me go to LA. Anyway, it all checked out. Like the tickets were legit. Like the guy had this other person in LA that I like checked in with so that they knew I was actually doing what they asked me to do. And I got to have this like free ride to LA for VidCon. It was just like, it was the most ridiculous thing that's ever happened to me. And I would shit myself now if it were to arise again. But I'm so glad I took the gamble.
I was like, I got a job. And you were like, I could have got kidnapped.
I could have got kidnapped, yeah, honestly. We've got some comments from Autumn and Matty, which we'll go through. So Autumn, earlier when we were talking about old friends on the internet, said, I feel it's hard to bring up online friends to not online people. The reaction is 50-50. Have you found that 50-50 reaction much, Justine? Like, has anyone been really against it before, or is it just a lack of understanding?
It's hard to say because all my friends now are people who have made internet friends before, because that is still like the group that I solidly surround myself with. When I was working recently, I did explain it to somebody, and these were all middle-aged women, and they were like, huh? But they were like, okay, whatever. And I think it was just attributed to me being weird, not that it was a weird thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the only time it was ever like a super adverse reaction was my parents in the beginning, because I was a 17-year-old girl talking to who knows to them.
Yeah. But yeah, totally. Like out
of character for me, I don't know.
I guess it's probably far different for our experience as well. Like I feel like being a teenage girl on the internet and being a teenage boy on the internet are totally different experiences. I always feel like I expected reactions to be worse than they ever were. Like I remember I didn't tell my friends that I made YouTube videos for well over a year because I was worried they'd all be horrible to me. And when it eventually came out, and I can't really remember the ins and outs of how people found out, but people were so lovely and supportive. Like, yeah, honestly, it was so weird. Like I still got uncomfortable if anyone talked about it around me, but people were lovely about it. Absolutely lovely. So for me, the reactions have always been worse up here than they actually have been out in real life.
Yeah.
We've got people freaking out about my LA story. Autumn has then asked how many free LA trips I've had, and I don't feel comfortable expressing that in case I come across like a freeloader.
At least 7.
At least 7. I think I've been 8 times in my life, so I don't think it's quite 7 free ones. But I mean, if anyone's watching and is after someone to go to LA on behalf of their business, I have got records of how good I am at doing that. So if anyone wants to pay for me to go. Matt's talking about how he never got over the people I know watch my videos thing. I guess you didn't make that many, Justine, but did you ever have experiences like that of the ones you did create?
Nope, because I was very quick. I didn't even like my internet friends watching the ones that I made, which is why I stopped, because I just felt so like weird. Yeah. I don't know. It's something that I've gotten over. It might have just been like teenage insecurity, but it like, I didn't know if what I was saying was interesting. And you and I had this discussion earlier where somebody told me that maybe I wasn't interesting enough, and I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't then.
It's such a horrible thing to say. I'm so sorry someone said that to you.
That's right.
Yeah, honestly, like I'm still the same. Like I have, like, even with Twitch now, like I'll be careful where I share it, like, because I'm just inherently insecure about things like that, because partly because of my insecurities, and then partly because I know that there are certain people in my life who just love to tear people down, like for a cheap laugh or because they don't get it or whatever. And I'm inherently conscious of them. Like I bring up with you all the time, it seems, Justine, the regressive area I live in and the people that sort of invites into your life, honestly.
It's, to go along with that, I've had 2 of my cousins come to my Twitch streams lately. And at first, well, one of them is quite young, and so I'm like, okay, I'll censor myself because I don't think my family knows how much I curse. But the other one is 2 years younger than me, and like I don't care what she sees, you know. But it's still weird because I'm essentially talking to nobody. Like I'm talking to people in chat, obviously, like we're talking to Matt and Autumn, but
yeah,
like Oscar's just back there and he's like, she's just talking to nobody, you know.
Yeah.
And it's
I
weird
totally get it.
to see that, because they don't, I guess it's a different part of yourself that they're seeing, and it's like, do I want them to see that? Or, you know, there are certain people I don't want to let into that. It's private, but also very public.
Yeah, no, I get it. I think what you touched on there about who you're talking to in what capacity, or if you are talking to anyone or whatever, like I think that's probably what led me to wanting to do like a podcast and like chats rather than just make videos about old YouTube, because one, I think inherently my presence on camera will be better when I'm talking to someone. 2, I don't like just being me in front of the camera like I used to way back when. I didn't even like it then very much, and also 3, like it's, I don't know, we can talk and it gives, like, we can bounce off each other, whether chat had nobody in it talking or hundreds of people. I know it's just an excuse to reconnect with old friends as well. Like, and I'm so thankful that this has started and that you've come along, Justine, and we've got to catch up about it. I guess one last thing, although I feel like once you answer my next question, it might be a slightly somber tone, so maybe I should come up with another question afterwards. But we've talked about how important the community was to us and those friendships and that platform, and I just thought we should maybe talk about where those friendships are now, if many of them are still intact, if they are, or if they're not, why. If you want to go off on that.
That's fine. Matt and Autumn just said hello.
Yeah.
With the 3 of you has been a more recent reconnection. And it wasn't anything. There have been people where it was like, not a good ending. But there are other people where it's just sort of gradually tapered off, because that's what happens when you grow up, I guess. It's not necessarily anything bad. We've just grown up and we've got other things that we need to do. But I think what I explained to you before when we were talking about how like the pandemic and like using Twitch has brought a bunch of people back together. It's like you see who actually gives a shit. And it's like, because nobody's got anything else to do.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, obviously you're going to worry about if people are okay. And even just like with some people, it'll just be checking in every once in a while.
Yeah.
And it's not that I don't want to talk to you. It's that I've time zones and life, and do I have anything to talk to you about? I don't want to bore you.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't care, but some people have tapered off purposefully, and other people it's just like, I still want to talk to you. Do we have time at the same time?
Yeah. I suppose it's like, I guess ultimately YouTube back in the day was a hobby, and it was a very significant hobby, but that's what it was, right? And we got involved in the community the same way someone who plays golf in their spare time would get involved with their golf community, and they might hold these memories really dearly, but if they get older and stop playing golf, are they going to stay in touch with everyone that they met from that hobby? And I guess not. I guess it's the same sort of thing. Whereas I've like had a ton of like, we've talked about this already, internal existential conflicts about, well, did they never like me? Like, and I guess there's the added like, back when we were YouTubing, if you will, there were audiences, and you could see an aspect of commodities, like, were they only friends with me? For my audience to climb that ladder, like, did they actually like me? Were they just friends of friends? Like, did I do something to piss them off? And it's really easy to spiral. And frankly, that's one of the reasons I quit YouTube, was because I was spiraling about 1,000 different things from the platform. But you're right. It's been super nice reconnecting with people and seeing who wants to reconnect and who actually gives a shit. And I guess they're the proper, like the friendships that would grow outside of the platform for being friendships, not just for the platform's sake, right?
Yeah, I would
cool.
wholeheartedly agree.
Excellent, cool. I haven't thought of a more positive question to ask you at the end, but I do just want to say how much I've loved reconnecting with you recently, Justine. It's been so nice. Thank you for making the time to come on the podcast and talking to me about things. Hopefully we can have a call more frequently than once every 4 to 7 years from now on. It'd be lovely.
At 2 today.
I know, honestly. I don't think that's sustainable. I don't think I can do 2 a day.
You don't need to do 2 a day.
Cool. Well, Matt and Autumn, thank you for your questions as well. I want to get both of you on the podcast soon, so give me a message on Facebook or Twitter or something. Justine, thank you for being here. Anyone else who's watching, thanks for stopping by. And it's done for Christmas now, so there'll be one back in the new year, but I'll tweet about it. Until then, thanks everyone for watching, and I will see you next year. Have a good Christmas and a new year. And to you, Justine, happy Christmas.
Bye.